Hi everyone, how are you? Monica here with the best interest of the parent. Thanks for your patience. It's 8:39. I'm a little late, and why is that? It's because my brand new webcam broke. This thing still has part of the wrapper on it, and it's not working anymore. So that's why you're watching this like grainy camera with me right now. So I apologize for the quality of the video. I'll work on getting this thing fixed. So I apologize, but we're here. That's what's important. And I appreciate you coming on. And if you're brand new to this channel, if you're on YouTube or you're watching from Facebook, if you're new with me, just understand that I am uniquely qualified to be talking about this subject matter. So, and we're going to get into that in a little while. So the best interest of the parent, what I do is I help moms and dads who are fighting in family court create roadmaps for healing and empowerment for themselves while they're fighting through family court. And the reason parents need empowerment and healing is because family court is a very psychologically traumatizing experience to go through, as you know, right? Like some of you warrior moms and dads understand that. But if you're brand new and you're just trying to work your way through the system and you're like talking to attorneys and stuff and you're trying to figure out how to proceed in your case, it's very debilitating and anxiety producing experience because it's you're feeling your way through the dark and you don't have a roadmap. So what I do is I help parents build healing and empowerment systems for themselves using my roadmap, which is my course, The Best Interest of the Parent. So some of you may have already taken the course, but if you have not, I'm going to link the link to the course in the description here so that you can get a better feel of it. But it's a 12-week course. I truly believe that a parent can figure out what they need to figure out using less than $1,000, and they could do it in less than 3 months. I really, truly believe that. And whether you take my course or not, that's irrelevant. Even if you don't take my course, you can still learn the system in 3 months using less than $1,000 of your money, in my opinion. If you know what to look for, if you know, what you should be studying, what you should be researching, and what kind of questions you should be asking your attorney, and what kind of things you want your attorney to go after when you're in this. So there's a lot of divorce coaches out there, and I study other people, and a lot of them will, sell a program, and most of them are very knowledgeable. Most of them are great. I think you guys should all use whatever resources are available out there. You take in whatever you can. I think the biggest mistake a parent can make is when they outsource all of their authority and their thinking to their attorney. Because A, it's expensive. It's expensive to have your attorney think for you. It's expensive to have your attorney write a letter to your school principal. Why can't you write that letter, right? I mean, attorneys are taking on positions like doing non-legal things for your children. Does that make sense? Why do parents do that? Attorneys are taking on positions where they're communicating with the other parent's attorney over something about the child that's not even a legal issue. It's like, oh, which doctor are you going to take your child to? Let me talk to my attorney so my attorney could talk to the other side's attorney. And that's like, collectively, that's like $500 an hour extracted from the family. And it doesn't make sense. I just, that's not a legal issue. Which freaking doctor your child sees is not a legal issue. Which extracurricular activity your child does, that's not a legal issue. Your attorney should be studying law and how to protect your rights, how to protect you from the government taking your child away from you, period. That's it. And so, not to get off on a tangent, but so anyway, whether you follow me or not, you can learn what you have to learn in 3 months. You can use scholar.google.com. You could research other cases. You could research people who've lost their appeals and take in like what they did incorrectly and how you could apply things better. You can see a therapist and find out what's important to you. Your therapist can help you determine if you're okay with every other weekend parenting or not. Some parents are totally fine with every other weekend parenting. There's nothing wrong with that. I know tons of amazing parents, people who've worked with me personally, who are like, I'm totally good with every other weekend. So, even talking to a therapist to find out what you're okay with, are you okay with your ex relocating the kids? Are you okay with your kids not going to private school anymore? You can work that out with a therapist. You do not need to pay an attorney $250 an hour to talk about that kind of shit. Okay. Like, you need to go to your attorney saying, look, this is what I want. I want this and this and this. Please go get that for me. Providing that it's equitable, right? Because I don't think parents should be asking their attorneys to take the kids away from the other parent unless the other parent is unfit. And if the other parent is unfit, you can sign up for my next masterclass and you'll automatically get a 45-minute lesson on what to do when you believe your children are being abused. And so I believe I'm releasing my next masterclass June 6th or 7th or something like that. So stay tuned. I'll be announcing it periodically. So anyway, this particular this topic tonight, I don't remember what I called it. Where do I go to fix these problems? This came directly from an email I received last week, and it really outlines the issues in family law. I'm gonna actually pull it up. I'm gonna pull up the email. It was so, like, when I read that, I was like, oh my God, you just outline every issue in family law in like one sentence. So let me pull up this email that I received. It's super powerful. So my face is gonna blow up right now because I'm pulling up my email. Let's see here. All right. Okay. All right. Dear Monica, thank you for your podcast. I love it. Where do I go to fix these problems? My attorneys in GAL worked against me and for my ex. Now I'm broke and working, but not saving enough money for an appeal, and everybody tells me that time ran out. So that's such a very simple sentence, right? Like, there's not much there, but but there's a lot there. Where do I go to fix these problems? Right? Like, where do I go? What do I do now? I got screwed. I don't have my children. I don't have my money anymore. You know, a lot of times parents are willing to put down $10 or $20 or $30,000, thinking that they're going to have some sort of tangible outcome that they could live with. You know, like, a lot of parents are willing to do that. But when you lose everything and you don't have your assets anymore, that's like a double. Like, it hurts. It's like buying a house, and then when you go to close, you get the keys and there's no house, but you still have to pay the mortgage. So where do I go to fix these problems? So, like, what do I do now? I'm out everything. What do I do now? I can't appeal. What do I do? Do I complain? Do I freaking file a complaint with the Department of Justice? Do I contact my attorney general? Do I go to the federal court? Like, what do I do? Do I contact my legislator? Do I go to the media? Or do I just freaking live like this? Like, it's such a scary place to be, right? Do you guys remember being in that what I call it the rock bottom moment, right? When you're like, it's a terrifying experience. My attorneys in GAL worked against me and for my ex. Okay, right? That's pretty much what happens. Now I'm broke and working, but not saving enough money for an appeal, and everybody tells me that time ran out. So that, you know, you hit rock bottom. You have no options, and you're out all your assets. So what I'm going to tell you, the message that I want to deliver to you tonight is, so guys, I started losing my voice like 10 days ago from protesting, and I feel like I haven't gotten it back yet. So I hope my voice stands through this whole live stream. So let me pull up. So I made a post today on Facebook, and I'm going to read it out loud for my YouTube people, because it's important. So, and this ties into that email. This is kind of a post I made in response to that email. So this is what I wrote. I wrote, probably the biggest challenge all of my students face is that while cognitively they know what they need to do, and they actually feel good about doing it. So what do I mean by that? Well, a lot of you know that you could say no to a psych eval. A lot of you know that you could say no to a guardian ad litem being assigned. A lot of you know that your ex legally can't take your kids away from you without proving you unfit. Like, you guys know that. Like, that's kind of like common knowledge for the most part. A lot of you probably know that no one can really enter your home without your permission, and measure your backyard and check to see how many bedrooms you have, check to see if you have pets or dogs or something. You know, a lot of times guardians ad litem will tell judges, like, oh, you know, mom has a pit bull, dad has a Rottweiler, or whatever, you know, and the judge will like use things like that to take your kids away from you. Or if you have an extended family member living in your house, you're taking care of your sick grandma, a parent will lose freaking custody for something like that, you know. And so you don't have to let anybody into your home to even investigate the private nuances of your life. And so a lot of you know that, but it's not enough. So cognitively, we have what we need up here, right? Like, we know stuff, we got stuff in our brain, right? And we feel good about it. We feel confident about the stuff we know. For the most part, you might even have a few case law references outlined, you know, like, hey, I got this. I could say this to the judge, everything's gonna be fine. So you feel good about what you know, but when it comes down to the wire, they retract and they follow the regular family court narrative, which is surrender, do whatever you want, judge. I can't fight anymore. I'm too stimulated. I'm too, what's that word I'm looking for? Like, you know, that feeling when you're just kind of agitated and aroused and you can't think straight. You're kind of like, you're kind of entering a panic attack. And then you find that you're kind of starting to give away your rights. You're starting to agree to things you don't even know what you're agreeing to. And things just go really fast. In like 5 minutes, you're a weekend parent without even realizing it. Have you ever been in that situation? Just put it in the comments if you've been in that situation where things moved really fast and next thing you know, you're agreeing to couples counseling with someone you broke up with 5 years ago, something like that, or co-parenting therapy or a psych eval, or you're agreeing to supervised visits, or you're agreeing to pay half of some ridiculous fee, or you're agreeing to pay half of an extracurricular sport when you're already paying a ton of money in child support. So when it comes down to the wire, they retract and follow the regular family court narrative, which is to do whatever you think the judge wants you to do. They find themselves signing contracts and agreeing to things like supervised visits. Their entire case can fall apart in 20 minutes, right? I mean, I think I lost $7,500 in fake arrearages in 5 minutes. So that's my record. And I'm still paying those off. Yeah, because I agreed to it. I was like, yeah, I owe that money. And I didn't fight it because I was freaking scared, right? I was afraid I was going to lose more time with my son. I was down to 36 hours a week with him. And I thought if I didn't agree that I owed arrearages, then the judge would freaking take my son away from me altogether, because I didn't know my rights. I didn't know any better. I didn't know that I had due process rights and I had the right to ask for a hearing. And, I didn't know, and we don't know what we don't know. So when we don't know stuff, we give stuff away. So, and even when we do know it, if we're too scared to apply what we know, we give stuff away. We're like, here, take it all. They regret doing that and they wish they had done more, right? They beat themselves up for years of what they didn't do, in court. In a couple of days, they come to their senses and realize what a shitstorm they have been through, how their senses were hijacked, and a robotic version of themselves took over. Yes, right? The panicked version of you takes over, and that is the version of you that is litigating in this crappy system, right? You're scared, you're panicked, you can't access the best parts of your brain to fight for your rights, fight for your children. And next thing you know, you're out like what this person wrote to me in her email, right? They get into panic mode and they want to appeal. So they drown themselves in figuring out how to appeal, right? You lose everything. Your next step is, oh my God, you might panic for 48 hours. You might call your mom, call your grandma, call your uncle, call your best friend, call your boss, call all these people and just vent to them. Wear everybody out with your story, right? And then on day 3, you're like, okay, I have to appeal. How do I appeal? And now you have to figure out all that nonsense. They come to their senses and they realize what they've been through, how their senses were hijacked and a robotic version of themselves took over. I already said that. They get into panic mode and they want to appeal. So they drown themselves in figuring out how to appeal. They see that it's impossible because there was no litigation, but rather an agreement. An agreement can't be appealed. So I see this more in CPS cases, DCF, CPS, DCYS, whatever. I see this more in those cases than I do in divorce cases, where a parent agreed to certain things and they didn't even know they were agreeing to it. They were coerced and strong-armed into it, but it's still an agreement. Legally, it's still an agreement. Even if someone says, do this or else, it's still considered an agreement if you don't ask for a full litigation trial, if you don't ask for a full hearing, if you don't ask for an evidentiary hearing, where you get to cross-examine witnesses and present evidence and make claims and ask for requests for relief. If you're not doing things and you're kind of behind the scenes with your opponent, making plans or writing things out, that's actually an agreement. A lot of parents don't know that. I didn't know that. I got into all these agreements. I had no freaking idea what I was doing. I thought I was supposed to do it. Like, it's a mess. It's a gigantic mess. And you're trying to figure out how to appeal. And then you realize that you can't appeal. Like, everybody's telling you that you can't appeal. And you're like, well, what the hell, So yeah, they see it's impossible because there was no litigation, but rather an agreement, and an agreement can't be appealed. And this is what causes the toxic hell of family law. We get into these agreements. We think that we're supposed to be agreeable. That's what they say. Be agreeable, do whatever you're told, but you're entering into agreements that are legally binding and you can't get out of them because it's an agreement. You didn't ask for a trial. You didn't ask for a hearing. So it's like, it's panic. The best parts of you aren't present in the courtroom. I mean, it's a gigantic shit storm. Is that what I called it? Yeah, a shit storm. So when parents know that no matter what they do, it's going to, okay, so this is the part I want you to walk away with. This is like the aha moment that I want you to walk away with. And this took me maybe 6 years to figure out. So I don't expect you to get this right away. But when you as a parent in the system know that whichever way you go, whether you stand up for yourself and you do things like what Monica would do, what I teach in my course, right? When you know that that's going to feel uncomfortable and it's going to suck and it's going to feel, it's not going to feel good. You're not going to feel good in your gut. Your heart's going to you're still going to have the heart palpitations. You're still going to have the migraines. You're still going to have the dry throat. You're still going to have the sweaty palms, the shakes. Everything's going to feel the same. You're going to feel exactly the same doing things like how I teach parents, than you are when you're giving everything away and like letting yourself lose. You're going to feel the same way. Your body's going to go through the same exact sensations. And so oftentimes when a parent is being called to step out of their comfort zone and step into an activist role, which is what I teach parents, because I teach you how to get into the mindset needed to take down these saboteurs, right? So when you step into that role, it's going to feel the same way as if you're not stepping into that role. And in fact, it can feel worse. Your body could actually feel worse when you're doing this thing that you think you should be doing. Like, well, I have all these rights. I should use them, right? I'm, legally somebody can't do the things that they're trying to do. So I should probably point that out. I should let the judge know that what's happening is, you know that cognitively. And so when you start applying it, it could actually make your body feel worse. You might be more symptomatic. You might sweat more. You might have more heart palpitations. You might, feel sick to your stomach. A lot of parents tell me they want to throw up when they're in court. I hear that all the time. And so when you, but when you abandon that position and you start agreeing to everything, you can technically start to feel better because you're not putting that kind of pressure on yourself anymore to perform and like be this powerful version of yourself. Does that make sense? So I wrote about that here. I wrote, I'll just say it again. When parents know that no matter what they do, it's going to suck and be uncomfortable, they make different choices. So when you just accept, like, look, it's going to suck. My body's not going to like this. You're going to make a different choice when you just accept that it's not going to feel good. It's not going to feel good. And it's hard to do things that feel like crap. It really is. And that's why we don't exercise, right? That's why freaking people don't like to exercise, because it kind of sucks, right? Like, who really wants to feel that muscle shaking? Who wants to feel that way when you could just be sitting on the couch watching Netflix? What feels better? I know, yes, we all know that we're supposed to work out, but doesn't it kind of feel better to just sit around and watch Netflix? There's a lot of good stuff to watch, and going to the gym, kind of sucks because it makes your body feel kind of crappy sometimes, right? And don't get into all that crap like, oh, I got the high. That's not, I used to be a personal trainer. I used to be a health coach, or I still am, but I used to work with people more nutrition. People don't say that stuff, okay? People say that on the internet, but maybe you're in that 10% of people who like to exercise. But so anyway, so yeah, you make different choices when you can accept that it's not going to feel good in your body. All right. Now, it is very scary to stand up for yourself in court, and acquiescing takes away that pain immediately, right? When you say, you know what, screw it, I'll just take the supervised visits. Screw it, fine, I'll get a guardian ad litem. There's a temporary like, oh God, I could be done with this crap, and I could just go home and just cry. Like there's a temporary like, whew, okay, who cares, right? So. So acquiescing takes away that pain immediately. and seemingly without a whole lot of effort. It's kind of easy just to be like, fine, whatevs, right? And it's hard to come up with like legal strategy and like case law and like the right words and like, oh, is that the Fourth Amendment or the 12th Amendment or the 55th Amendment? Like it's hard to access that knowledge when you're panicked and you think you're going to lose your kids and your money, and you're being laughed at by your opponent, and your ex who triggered you for 10 years in marriage is laughing at you, and they remind you of that thing they did at your aunt's wedding or something. Like you're literally with the rotten scum of the earth. You have a nasty judge. You just have nasty ass people all around you, and it's so hard to access all this intellectual stuff when you're being triggered like crazy, right? So it seems like the right choice at the time to just acquiesce, right? But the pain is temporarily diminished, and the anxiety gets better right away. And it feels like the right choice based on how the parent feels at the time. Okay, in that 12 seconds where you say yes, whatever, you just get this like, okay, I'm done. I can just not deal with it anymore. It feels really good at the time. But then there's back end struggles that are very tough and long and treacherous. And that's what this parent was illustrating. Like, okay, now what do I do? I can't appeal. I can't, I lost all my money. I'm broke. So there are back end struggles when you don't suffer, when you don't take that early hit of discomfort in the courtroom, when you're standing up to these nasty people. So to summarize, are you okay feeling less shitty in the courtroom and dealing with back end issues later? Or how do you feel about being really, really uncomfortable in the moment, like doing the unthinkable, doing stuff that you never thought you would ever do in your life? Because there's people that are afraid to ask their boss for a raise, right? Like I'm not comfortable with stuff like that. and there are people who are uncomfortable asking their neighbor to turn down their music or tell their neighbor to have their dog stop barking. Like a lot of us would rather just deal with the dog barking than asking their neighbor to quiet it down. A lot of us aren't comfortable with confrontation. That's kind of why we got stuck with the narcissist in the first place. Because we're not comfortable setting boundaries with people. So, and it's easier just to acquiesce. And that's kind of probably why your marriage lasted as long as it did, because you just kind of gave in all the time. So again, this is just a question to ask yourself, like, are you okay suffering at the back end, possibly losing your children, figuring out how to appeal, spending more money on an appeal, learning that you can't appeal an agreement, or is it better to just dump all this discomfort into the front end of your case? So the other thing I want to point out is that when parents are on the fence about working with me, when they're like, I really want to take this course, but this is scary. Like I like just paying my attorney and letting my attorney deal with it. I get that. That's the Netflix thing. That is like, I have 30 pounds. Like I just lost a bunch of weight, like in the past 8 or 9 months. And there were days where I was like, fuck, screw this. Like, I'd rather just not work out today. And like, that was like all the time, and it feels good at the time. Like you get yourself off the hook for a few hours. And then the next day you're like, oh, now I got to work out because I missed yesterday. And so like, when parents are like on the fence of working with me, because it's like, well, I have to learn stuff. And then after I learn stuff, I have to apply it. And then, so of course the doubt is going to come, because the other thing is, this doesn't always get the results you want. You could do everything perfectly and you could still have an asshole judge who breaks the law anyway. And so I had a parent reach out to me probably like 6 months ago who says, why should I listen to you? You never got your son back. And the appeals court shredded your documents, right? So I did everything right. I went to the appeals court, they shredded my documents, and I never got my son back. So when a person says something like that, what they're saying is, your success is based on somebody else's actions. So-and-so did this thing, so therefore what you have to say, I'm not going to listen to you. And so, I mean, that's kind of like telling Martin Luther King that what he did didn't work because of what happened with George Floyd and what happened with Rodney King. And what happens with all the other people of color getting brutalized by the police. Does that mean Martin Luther King meant nothing? Malcolm X, they're like, why should we listen to anything they say? Look what happened to George Floyd. So another judge choosing to be corrupt does not make you a failure. It does not make any parent a failure, because when you do the right thing and when you follow your backbone, because the reason you guys are watching me is because you know this is wrong. You know this is freaking wrong. You know that, you just know that this is not how it's supposed to be. This is America. And we don't get our kids taken in America unless we're unfit parents. And so why is it just because our ex doesn't like us anymore, we're losing our kids, and we're losing $40,000 or $100,000? There's a mom in Connecticut who just lost like $211,000 just to her guardian ad litem alone. So, I mean, so my point is, I lost my train of thought. somebody made a funny comment, and it got me distracted. So, I forgot what I was going to say. Let me scroll through the comments. Maybe that will remind me. All right. So, I referenced Jerry Springer in my book. There's a parent that says, stuck in trial at DCF, it's a total Jerry Springer. Yeah, I actually referenced Jerry Springer in my book because it's Jerry Springer. You get rooted, whatever, cheered for. What's that word? You get cheered at. What's that called when you're when you're winning and people are cheering? I don't know. You get cheered at when you're being mean, and when you're doing the right thing, you get booed off the stage. Yeah, I'll send you info on the masterclass. The parent that asked, I have a replay from a couple weeks ago, and let's see. You must learn how to appeal and what you could appeal. Yes. So I'll just say this. You can only appeal matters of law. You can't appeal an opinion, and you can appeal a fact sometimes. The problem with appealing facts, I'll tell you an example. One of the things I appealed was a fact. The judge said something like, Monica's schedule that she's asking us to put her on with her son has her son changing homes 20 times a month or something stupid like that. Like, she made up some random number, and it was really like 8 times a month. And so I appealed her crappy math. I said, it's not 20 times a month, it's 8 times a month. Here's why. And so I proved her wrong. But oftentimes the appellate court will say, well, okay, fine, you were right. The judge was wrong about that fact. You were right. But it didn't impact her decision. It didn't impact the judge's decision. The judge still used the law correctly. The judge still did what they were supposed to do. Just because the judge got that little piece wrong, the judge said you live on Mulberry Street and you really live on, Main Street. It doesn't matter. The judge would have still made their decision. So matters of fact are harder. You can appeal those, but you're better off appealing matters of law. So if the judge applied the law wrong, that's when you appeal. And the problem with family court is that the judge uses the best interest of the child, which is a blank check. See this? It's a checkbook. The judge, it's like writing a check, a blank check, and you, it's I pay my office rent today, so that's why I have this. But it's a blank check. Not anything can be written in there. So when you say, I want you to make a best interest of the child determination, the judge could say, great, your child could live on Mars. You could send them satellite text messages once a month. You could feed them through a tube. They could get little astronaut food through a tube, and they could live on Mars in a spacesuit until they're 18, and then they could come back. Like, a judge could legally, a judge could say that. If you ask the judge to make a best interest determination, the judge can say that, and the judge could order anything they want. They could order that your child lives in a tool shed, on your uncle's property if they want, anything they want. They could say anything. So someone says, yeah, you can absolutely fight a fact with clear and convincing evidence. Perfect. Yes, you can. If you are, they call it plain error, in my state. And so if you could clearly show, but again, sometimes like the appellate court will say, well, okay, the judge still would have done what they wanted to do, even with that fact being, overturned. So unfortunately, I lost my train of thought. No, I got it now. Okay, so I read some of your comments, and now I know what I was going to say. So this is the thing: when you use your backbone and this is wrong, you're like, I'm being treated incorrectly. This is against the law. This is not fair. This is a I got to stop reading these comments. Yeah, the Mars thing. I love using the Mars analogy. So, so, so when you're using your backbone because you were raised, you went to 8th grade civics class and you learned all about how the government works and what they can do, what they can't do. And when you know that and you want to lead with that, um, it's you're taking on a different role. You're taking on an unusual role than what most parents take on and what your attorneys are telling you to take on. Your attorneys are going to tell you to be malleable and just give in to the judge and just take it. But your backbone, your conscience is saying, I want to do it this way. Your heart, your inner being, your higher self, if you will, is saying you need to do it this way. And so you're in conflict. You're in conflict with what the attorney's telling you to do, with what even Facebook. You go on Facebook, sometimes they'll tell you just do what the judge wants, bro. Don't piss off anybody. A lot of men will say like, women always win. You better just give in. If you go to a parental rights based Facebook group, they're going to have a different set of advice. But if you go to any mommy group or any daddy group or like thinking about divorce group, they're all going to tell you to just give in, do what everybody wants you to do. You got to play the game, and has that worked for us? Are any of you guys kids of the 80s where you sat next to your friends in geography class and they had their dad with them every other weekend? Like, has that worked? Has giving in worked? Look at the freaking school shootings and the drugs and the gangs and the truancy that we're seeing with teenagers. Now the kids that grew up, the first wave of kids who grew up without their father is my age, and these people are getting elected into office and running police departments and like hospitals and stuff. Look how messed up these people are. We're living in a real messed up place with a lot of damaged people, and if their fathers weren't ripped from them, we probably would have different outcomes, and that's just going to get worse because family court sucks, and now mothers are losing their kids in court. So what are we going to see in 15 years when teenagers nowadays are running the government, and like people like us are sitting in nursing homes, in 15 years, right? We're all on our way there. When we start rolling downhill, like who's going to be taking care of us? These kids who have been separated from their mothers and their fathers. So it's not getting any better. So how is giving in going to help when it hasn't helped? So when you start to use your backbone to make decisions, you're taking on a new role, and you're not going to get a lot of support. Facebook won't support you. Your parent, your family members probably won't support you. A lot of people are going to just tell you that you're doing it wrong, But how many people do you think were cheering on Rosa Parks when she was refusing to give up her seat? People will tell you. Parents will tell you. Your attorneys will tell you. Legislators, judges, freaking GAL, all these people. They're going to tell you to just be happy that you're going to get any time with your child. Be happy with every other weekend. Do the supervised visits for 6 months. Show the judge that you're an agreeable parent. Show the judge that you're not crazy. Your ex thinks you're crazy. Show the judge that you're not crazy. Take that psych eval. Do all this stuff. They're going to tell you to do that, and they're going to make you feel like you have no choice, and that makes you feel like crap about yourself. And then you're just feeding that cycle. I mean, that's what we've been doing for 50 years. And so taking on a new role, you're not going to get a whole lot of support. People are going to tell you that you're crazy and that you're just being difficult. But at the end of the day, I have never, and this is not a scientific, analysis. This is just my interpretation of what I've seen. I have never seen a parent use their backbone and regret it. I've never seen a parent do that hard thing and regret it. And I don't regret it. And I never got my son back. My documents were shredded in the appeals court, but I have absolutely no regrets because I don't have any trauma. Like, I don't have all this like trauma and this like, feeling like crap about myself, like eating me up every single day. And I never say, oh my God, I should have done more. I never say that ever, 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 because I did everything. I did everything I could. And so I feel good. I feel good about myself, even though I didn't get the result I wanted. I'm not suffering from trauma. And when you take on a leadership role, other people are going to be influenced and inspired by you, and they are going to do what you're doing, and they might get that result. I have freaking students that got amazing results, and I'm like, oh wow, like I would have loved to have the results that some of my students have gotten. Like I would love to have that result. I had a mom, one of my very first clients I worked with she had a 4-month-old baby on the verge of going to foster care. I'll be honest with you, I could say this now because it's been a while. I was terrified for this client. And I was like scared. Like I was personally, I lost sleep over this situation. She freaking nailed it. She did stuff in the court that I would not have done. I would never have done this, you know? And like she did, and I was like, she was so freaking brilliant. I should get her on my podcast or something. She was so brilliant. I told her, I said, you need to build a business in advocacy. Like you need to freaking start taking clients and you need to open up your own business. Like she's that freaking good. And I was so scared for her. And DCF, they backed off. They literally backed off like a week after she started standing up for herself. I was like, okay. And I have seen that over and over again. I've seen parents stand up and do this crazy thing that they were so scared of. I had a dad once tell me that he used his rights in court and then he ended up getting sick in the bathroom right after. But he got what he wanted. You know, he wanted to see his daughter more. He freaking sees her more now. So, I mean, I would have loved to have the results that some of my students get, but I started too late. My son was 10 when I started to use my rights, and I had already been without him. He had already been separated from me for 7 years. And so status quo set in. And then I did go to the appeals court. You know, I went to the Supreme Court and everything. But at this point, if I were to go back now, my son will age out before I could finish the litigation process. So the final thing I want to share with you is that leadership is contagious. You're going to influence others. Other people are going to feel good in your presence. Other people are going to be inspired by you, and they're going to want to do what you're doing. And you're going to spread positivity in this toxic system. You're going to spread empowerment. Like what you're doing is going to, you're going to be a leader. You're going to take on a leadership role, and that's contagious. And that is going to attract more leaders. And we're going to flip this whole system around. We have freaking states changing laws as we speak, like today. Like Texas and I believe Alaska is making big changes today, May 6, 2021. So that's all I wanted to share. It's more just me just telling you, like, you could take on a different role. I don't care. If you don't think you're smart enough, you are definitely smart enough. I don't even have a high school diploma, and I did this. And it's actually not that hard. That's the final thing I want to say. Family law is not complicated. Family law is just, in my opinion, family law is just a little bit more complicated than small claims court. There's just basic principles, and you just follow those basic principles, and it's, and it's not difficult. What makes it difficult is the emotional baggage and the chaos and the stress and the toxicity and the corruption. You have to make a system corrupt to complicate it, because it's an easy family law is easy. It's simple. So in order to complicate it, they have to add on a lot of corruption so they could generate revenue, because you can't generate revenue on something really simple and attainable. You can only generate revenue when you start throwing in lies and fraud and accusations. Oh, this person's crazy. This person needs an evaluation, making you think you have no rights. And I'll say one more thing. And the thing about family law is that the reason they have to add in a lot of corruption is because there's no tangible money-making thing in family law except for the assets, like the house, the 401k, all that stuff. But a parent-child relationship cannot be monetized by the government unless you cut off the parent's rights. You can't monetize a parent-child relationship. Other areas of law, you can monetize it. You could, there's commercial law, there's a lot of money to be made in other areas of law, except for small claims court and traffic court, But family law is not lucrative unless you can diminish the parent's rights. When you cut down the parent's rights, then that parent has to pay money to get those rights back. So if the parent simply keeps their rights and uses them and maintains the position that they have these rights and they can't be taken away, then there's very little revenue to be made at all. I'm not even talking about the house and the 401k and the couple's assets. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the actual custodial, relationship that you have with your child. That is not easily monetized. You can't monetize that because it's a natural right. We have rights to our children the minute we have them. So, it's not something you have to purchase, or you don't need a license. There's no renewals. There's no education classes that you have to take. Like, there's none of that. You can't monetize a parent-child relationship unless you first cut that parent out of the picture. in some capacity. So let's see what we have for comments. Let's see here. I got to some of the comments. So let's see. Someone just said doomed. Has anyone of your clients have success stories? Yes, I talked about that mom with her 4-month-old baby. I could do a whole live stream on just that if you'd like. My clients are a little bit apprehensive about sharing their success stories. They don't want to push their luck typically, so they don't like to show their face, but we could certainly talk about what happened, So let's get, I'll add that to the list of live streams I want to do. All right. Thanks for asking. That's a good question. The hard part is going to court knowing that you are right and not being able to prove it. Yeah. So if you have a hard time proving that you're right, because that's hard, that's not always easy. Why not flip the script and challenge the other side to prove that you're wrong, or that, like, see if you could put the burden of proof on the other side. Typically, in most cases, the presumption of fitness and the presumption of you having a sound mind and the presumption of innocence is already there, and it's up to the other side to flip that and to make it not the case. So if you have a hard time proving that you're right, ask the other side to prove that you're wrong. Just say, well, it's presumed that I'm right, or I'm innocent, or it's presumed that I didn't break the law, or it's presumed that I didn't abuse my children, or, see if you could just flip the script. That's just what I would do. That's just me. None of this is legal advice, by the way, guys. You should always rely on a good attorney who's not going to tell you to give away your rights. But if you have an attorney that is committed to using your rights, always go with your attorney before you follow anything that you see on here. Because I don't give legal advice. I just teach what's already available to you. You can learn all this stuff in your civics 8th grade history book. You can learn all this stuff anywhere. All this information I share with you is widely available. All right. I just happen to condense it and deliver it differently than most people. That's all. But the content itself is not new. This isn't new information. The Constitution was written over 200 years ago. I've seen families restored. Yay. So interestingly enough, DCF and CPS cases, they typically do better when they work with me than the family cases, which is crazy because CPS, they're freaking monsters. They're just monsters. But DCF and CPS has to clear a higher hurdle than family law. Family law, there ain't no hurdle to clear. It's just whatever the judge wants. So you have to make sure you not give consent to the judge making all the decisions. Let's see. I've seen many families restored. Yay. They're in it for the money. Jerry Springer is from Ohio. That's like the most random comment I've ever seen in my entire life. Jerry Springer lives, his show is in Stamford, Connecticut, which is like an hour from where I live. We got to bring Jerry Springer on the show. You can fight a fact with clear and convincing evidence. Yes, we talked about that. Yep. What if the judge is clearly violating state law and not considering evidence of abuse, including a conviction? Yeah, this is freaking, this is tough. If you have ever taken my previous master classes, or if you come onto a future master class, you automatically get a 45-minute lesson automatically delivered to your inbox that talks all about that stuff. It's 45 minutes. It's a great lesson. It's a lesson from my course. I always, I have it's just what I recommend. And I always recommend going straight to the police. I know that you may have already cleared that. You've already done that, I think child abuse in family law is just a joke, like in divorce court, in a civil court. It's definitely outlined in more detail in that free lesson that you get just for signing on to my masterclass. So I don't know if you've ever attended a masterclass, but if you have, you should have gotten that lesson. It's automatic. So, yeah. So someone says, make sure you get that on the record so you could appeal it. Yes. Record preservation is everything. Yes. Someone says, preserve the record and don't agree to shit. They refuse even with a motion to compel transcripts. Yeah, it's a freaking joke. Judges will issue, this is just my opinion, you know, not legal analysis or anything. I believe judges will issue orders knowing that the other parent will break them so that you could spend money dumping your money back into the system to try to get that parent in trouble. They just want more. The more you can keep coming to court, the more transactional things that could happen in the court, the more motions that can be filed, the more appearances, the more papers freaking, going through the system, the more the clerk has to work to file stuff, the more we have transcriptions. I always forget the stenographers, the more people that type, the more marshals you need to deal with all these hearings, the more activity the judge can bring back to court, the more repeat customers they could acquire, basically. Then that's how they get their funding. When the judicial branch says, hey, we had to process 17,000 cases last year, they can then ask, I believe that's when they could ask the appropriations committee and the legislative side of government for more money. They could say, look, we need an extra $5 million for this year's budget, because look at these endless motions that we have to deal with all these parents continuing to come back to court because they can't get along. We work so hard, we're so overworked, blah, 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 blah. And this is what CPS does too. These freaking industries that make money making sure that you lose rights to your children will use this stuff to ask for more money into their system, and then they could get raises, they have more money. It's monopoly money, so I believe that this whole thing, a judge will order the narcissist parent, like, oh, the narcissist parent, Mr. Narcissist or Miss Narcissist, you have to call at 8 p.m. every Monday to check in to whatever, blah, 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 to have a discussion about your child. That's in my court order. All right. And my ex never once called me ever. My ex was literally in contempt within days of the order being written. So I believe the judge did that to bait me into filing contempt. And then, oh, look at this problematic couple again. Look at Monica here. She's back again, filing more motions, And so I believe they do that just so that you can keep coming back to court. They want you in court. Judge, oh, I don't want you in court anymore. I don't want to see you again. That is bullshit. They want you back. Trust me. If they didn't want to see you again, they'd freaking give you your children back. They want you there all the time. They want butts and seats. They refuse even with a motion to compel. Make sure you appeal in time. Yeah, like they give you like 10 days in some states. My third attorney has said it won't do any good as the appeal goes back to the same county judge. Yeah, that's really awful. Flood them with memes. So someone says that is not true. That was at 9:14. I'll have to go back and see what the timestamp is, see what I said that wasn't true. You're right. It goes back to the judge with a note to get their crap together or go to jail. It goes back with a judge with a note to get their crap. I have to look at these timestamps. I have to find out what you're talking about. I'm complying but not consenting. Interesting. I'm complying but not consenting. Yeah, I have a live stream on that I did like in December. It's pretty good. I'm complying but not consenting to avoid immediate incarceration. Yeah, that's a big topic to explore. When you're given court orders, yeah, and you're forced into compliance because, yeah, it's coercion. I mean, it's do this or else. Yeah, absolutely. I do believe parents should follow court orders just because of that stuff. But in the actual courtroom, like inside the actual courtroom, when there's like litigation happening or there's testimony and stuff, I believe parents shouldn't consent in the courtroom before the orders are written. Once the orders are written, unfortunately, you have to comply for that reason. You don't want to be incarcerated. But before the orders are written, I don't believe in any consent whatsoever. This is just my opinion. Other people might have a different opinion. I just haven't looked. I just look at history and I'm like, look, this is what people have been doing for 50 years. It ain't working. We have school shootings. We have gang violence. We have kids on drugs of all socioeconomic levels. It's just this fatherless and motherless epidemic is not acceptable. Yeah, that's a really tough spot to be in, that parent that said that thing about complying. It's time to change these people. I refuse to bow to the cult of Jerry Springer. Poor Jerry, if he only knew. Attorneys call it the lowest form of law. Yeah. Absolutely. I just looked it up. This is big. Yeah, the Missouri thing, cash for kids. Yep. Thank you for coming on tonight. Big, heavy topic. It's a mess. We have a lot of work to do. And if you're one of the parents that's going to take on a leadership role in your case, you're one of the very first parents to do so. Very, 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 very few parents do this. We just had one of a major warrior activist parent who's been at this a long time, literally just got his child back last week after like more than 10. I think he's been doing this longer than I have. Just got his child back, and I know for a fact it wasn't due to over complying. So we're at the very beginning of this movement, and like you're going to look like you're going to be different. You know, you're going to be like the only parent doing that thing, and it's hard to step into that category when everybody else is doing it this way. But over time, like in 10 years, we're going to see this whole thing really, really shifting, like really shifting. And the reason I know this is because we've already seen that. We have seen gay people. When I was a kid, gay kids were getting beat up in the hallways at school just for being gay, and it was totally acceptable. You know, it was just the place where gay kids were always getting beat up was at the bus stop. There was no supervision, but it was normal for a kid to just get beat up every single day. And now you would not see that. That might even be considered a hate crime nowadays. And I'm not that old. This is just like 25 years. So we have gay people are getting married now. We're not shoving disabled kids into tiny rooms in schools. We don't have segregated schools. We don't have schools with kids of color and white kids. There's so many things that we don't have anymore because somebody did a weird thing and decided to do this thing. Like Rosa Parks, like some people may have said, well, why would Rosa Parks have done that? She would have gotten to work just fine, or she would have gotten home from work just fine if she had just stayed put. And so when the next time your attorney says you need to just be happy with what you have, just say, should Rosa Parks have just stayed put because she would have gotten home regardless? I think people should start saying stuff like this, even in court. I don't care if it pisses off your judge. But anyway, I'm not going to tell you what to do. Not legal advice. But I'm at the point where I think we just need to start standing up for ourselves, because that's how historically it has worked. And it's always uncomfortable. It always sucks. It always feels like crap. I know for a fact Rosa Parks wasn't like, I'm just going to get arrested. This is going to feel great. No, she was scared to death. She didn't want to get arrested. I guarantee you she did not want to go to jail. And so, but she did it anyway because her backbone became a big thing. It became more important than feeling, having that relief when you just kind of acquiesce. So anyway, I probably overspoke about this issue, overstayed my welcome. And it's also been almost an hour. So we're going to be ending here. I'm going to be putting a link to my course, The Best Interest of the Parent, in the description. And we will meet up very soon on Monday. All right. Take care, guys. Have a good night. Bye.